like I started every time. What is up? Mile Higher Home Slices.
Home Slices.
Hey. God, I'm so nerdy. Kendall was just making fun of me before this podcast.
Don't tell
me how nerdy I am. Am I nerdy, guys? Do I look nerdy?
You are nerdy,
and she's making fun of my awesome necklace. What
I wasn't making fun of your necklace.
I'm totally selling you out right now.
You are.
I'm just like, I'm pissed. She's ragging on my fucking necklace.
I wasn't making fun of his necklace. I was just making
fun. Just because it has a carving of
like an old wizard man.
Yeah. It's beautiful, guys.
I was just being funny with you. I love you, and I love that you wear crystals. It makes you very smart. Plus, Labradorite is good for some woke ass podcasting.
Absolutely, because
I'm all about it.
We have to awaken our woke senses during this podcast in order to take in the information, because today is
potential.
Full of stuff.
Yes,
it's a full load today. Sorry, that sounds gross. But.
Anyway, this is podcast 11, and today we are talking about the mysterious disappearance of flight MH370, Malaysian Airlines plane that went missing in 2014. That in the last episode, if you watched it, we talked about, I mentioned how obsessed I was with the case and like how when it was happening, Josh and I were watching a ton of news coverage of it. Remember that?
Yeah, we did. We followed this quite a bit.
I was obsessed with it.
Because it was just mind-boggling that it was happening.
It's definitely aviation's greatest mystery.
Yeah.
Because here we are in 2018 and we still don't know what happened.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about is...
But we're going to solve that today.
Yes, we have the answer. We know where it is. We know what happened. No, we have no clue. But before we get into that, just real quick, thank you to our stellar patrons, Elizabeth B., Rebecca H., Chase C., Jake C., Jim W. If you haven't checked out our Patreon page, please take a cruise over there whenever you have a chance. Otherwise, if you want to support the podcast, what's extremely helpful, and a lot of you have already done this and we really appreciate it, is go on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you can leave a review or rating on the podcast. This helps us out immensely, guys. It really does. And it helps not only our podcast be seen by more people, but it helps us get recognized by iTunes and all these other platforms. You know, there's a lot. It'd be really cool to see a podcast like this talking about the things that we do, you know, like end up on the charts somewhere one day. That'd be cool, right?
That would be cool.
So if you guys feel like leaving us a review, good or bad, do it.
Good or bad.
Please,
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I always tell people the same things with my videos, like whether you thumbs it up or thumbs it down, you're still helping me. Like, it's just engagement at the end of the day. But yes, give us a rating. That would be very, very appreciated. But what next?
Our Patron question of the week.
Hell yeah. I actually love doing these. I love answering them. I never know them until we're sitting here. Okay, this is from Abby, and it says, if you could time travel back to one event or point in history to prove or disprove a conspiracy theory, which would you travel back to so you would finally have the answers? That's very, very interesting.
Very woke question right there.
It would have to be one that you could like witness something to be able to see.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say the Titanic, because then we could go back and like check on it, check ourselves, see the windows.
Because I'm assuming this question's like if you could travel back in time right now and we could try to investigate or witness any event that ended up being conspiracy theory. I would say probably, I think one that is, 9/11 is just like crazy. And just like, I wish I could be there and just kind of like from an aerial perspective and see like the big grand scheme of things. If I can time travel, I can like.
But how would you prove a conspiracy? Just by seeing it happen? Like the Titanic,
I guess
you could go back and try to get some evidence while it's sitting there. But
yeah,
with 9/11, you can't Because, everyone's seen it like a billion times.
Either that or like the JFK assassination would be interesting to see if there was like,
Or like what the umbrella person did.
Yeah, actually like
just
watch,
go back in time
and like know all the things that we know right now and just
find, what's his face? Wow, so profesh. What's his name? Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah. Yes. What if you like went and hung out with him until this happened and see if he actually did it?
Yeah. That'd be really cool, actually.
Very interesting. All right. I like that question. Thank you, Abby.
Yes, thank you for the question. But to begin things today, there was some major news that broke a few hours ago, really. Basically, it's a new update on the Atacama humanoid body that was found, I think 15 years ago is actually when it was first found, but it first kind of came to the public light in Dr. Stephen Greer's documentary, Sirius. And if you haven't seen that, basically, in 2003, a strange looking skeleton. And when we say strange skeleton, if you haven't seen it, it literally looks like a tiny little alien body.
Yeah, like 100%. If you'd see it, you'd be like, oh, yeah.
Right. You would just off first glance be like, that looks like a little alien. It looks fake almost.
Yes. Looks very fake, like an action figure or something. Because it's really small. It's only 6 inches.
Yes. It's 6 inches long, and it's been preserved in the dry desert conditions in the Atacama Desert, which is in Chile. And what's weird about it is it's missing a pair of ribs, and it has a highly deformed head and face and an elongated skull. So it looks straight up alien. And what I thought was interesting that I forgot about was that this specimen isn't ancient either. It's not extremely old. It's only about 40 years old. And it was discovered 15 years ago. Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought it was a lot older than that, but it's actually only from 40 years ago. And
wow,
that's the state of it. Yeah, after 40 years. Wild, right?
40. Wow.
So this has been this really kind of became a big deal in a very well-renowned microbiologist and immunologist, sorry, Gary Nolan of Stanford University got involved with this back in 2013 when Dr. Greer and him got together and they filmed examining it, extracting DNA from it, tissue, things like that.
Running it through a CRT
in order
machine.
to, scanning it, x-ray, all the different things in order to try to figure out what this was. And I mean, at first glance, obviously, if it's not alien, then it's human, and it's some like tiny fetus or a tiny baby human or something.
Yeah. I did a video on this, and that's what most of the comments were saying were, this looks like a fetus. But then it's interesting because Gary Nolan a few years ago was like, yeah, it's definitely not a fetus though, because it had the bone maturity of an 8-year-old.
Right.
So it's like some weird deformity. Right?
Yes, exactly. So the big news that broke today was that 5 years later, after really researching this thing, doing the tests, going through literally dissecting the genetic code of this thing, they basically were able to determine that Ada, which is the nickname for this body, was a human girl of Chilean descent. Wow. And she was very likely still a developing fetus when she died, even though she exhibited the bone composition of a 6-year-old child. Wow. So she was a fetus, but she had the bone composition of a 6-year-old child.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Huh.
And the reason for this is that Ada suffered from a rare bone aging disorder. And basically the researchers were able to identify mutations in at least 7 genes that either separately or in tandem contributed to Ada's odd physical characteristics, including facial malformations, bone deformities, and apparent dwarfism known as skeletal dysplasia. And some of the genes analyzed in the study were already known to cause disease, but this is the first time that some of the mutations were linked to abnormal bone growth or other developmental problems. So this is just a bizarre specimen is what they're saying, and they're very surprised and don't know how this child has as many mutations as she did.
Yeah.
So it's really wild, and it is a very weird, rare specimen that we really haven't seen much of before. So, but they were able to.
Well, how did they determine that part of it wasn't human DNA? Or now
it was unknown. It wasn't. It was just unknown. They didn't know what it was, but it is human. So they never linked it back to anything else.
I just realized, am I going to be blending into the background the whole time again? And so are you. Dude, are we going to look like 2 floating heads? We have both green.
No, we won't be floating heads. It'll just be blue. It'll just be the opposite color.
It'll probably be kind of
dark.
Though. We might look like ghosts on this podcast. We'll see.
Rightfully so.
All right. Well, what a bummer. I really thought that was
a lot of people really thought that it was going to come back being extraterrestrials of some sort.
But this is why I trust Dr. Greer's. He never pushed that this was a body. From the beginning, he said, this is very strange. We don't know what it is. It could be alien, but I mean, we just don't know. And he always had that. And that's why I really, really trust him as a resource for alien information. He didn't try to push this as this is a body. and it's definitely an alien. So, yeah.
I mean, that's what you would expect from a doctor. I mean, somebody intelligent.
It is wild looking, though.
It is.
How come
it's very
we never
bizarre.
see stuff like that now?
Well, we do. We have found other bodies, other small bodies. I mean, maybe not that exact one, but we have found other heads that are skulls that are elongated and stuff. Yeah. So it's not totally out of, the ordinary to discover kind of an alien looking thing, because we've found other things that look like aliens that just turn out to be humans. Like
there was a civilization that ties like boards to their heads.
Yeah, weird shit where they stretch their skull, and like as babies they like force their skulls to, it's weird. And I think a lot of us forget like how much history is before us, and just all the things that we probably have no clue about that they did. I mean, for all we know, like our ancestors were aliens, and maybe we're the aliens too. So we're just,
we probably are.
Evolved
Chances are
differently.
DNA didn't come from this earth. It came from outer space.
Came from elsewhere. Zeta Reticula.
Panspermia theory. All right, before we go...
Yeah, before we jump into... before we get into MH370 though, after last week's podcast, we did get a lot of comments about, hey, you guys didn't talk about this, talk about that when it comes to that bizarre voicemail that went viral. I know, I hate that we have to come back and revisit this, but I just wanted to revisit it very quickly just to put the rest of the information out there and give our thoughts on it, just because people really want to know what we think, because some people are starting to jump on this wagon here, and this wagon's going down a dark hole.
Well, the wagon, nothing. They think that the world's ending on April 18th.
Yeah. I mean, they've taken this message, this voicemail message that read, danger, SOS, it is dire for you to evacuate. Be cautioned, they are not human. 042933964230 SOS danger, SOS. And so the numbers are coordinates, which led to a location in Africa and another one in Malaysia, apparently. And many users thought that these coordinates somehow were linked to MH370 and the missing aircraft, because they were close to Malaysia, and it had nothing to do with that.
It's not even anywhere near where the plane stopped.
And people are like, well, okay, the plane encountered aliens, and that's why they said evacuate. They're not human. But it's like, dude, they're on a plane.
Dude,
where are they going to... Makes no sense for a plane.
It just screams amateur to me.
Dude, and look at this guy. This is the...
the guy who posted it,
Look up the guy who posted this message.
Well, he may not be like...
Right. No,
I don't want to say he made it up, because it's very possible someone pranked him, and then he just shared the prank.
It's very true.
But yeah, it's so weird though.
There's weird.
Nothing solid. It's such... I just can't stand this like hoaxy crap that people are getting into. It's like sad, because this is the kind of stuff that distracts you from actual
real stuff that's
theories
happening.
And actual like things that actually hold any evidence. This is just like grasping at straws. I mean, the fact that people have connected this to like...
Yeah, I'll tell you about that real quick. Some other stuff that we forgot to mention was that the guy that posted the initial tweet about this voicemail he also posted screenshots of unsettling direct messages he had been receiving on his Twitter account, which one was in Indonesian, and Malaysian was the other one, and a couple in Morse code. He got like Morse code messages, and then conveniently Malaysian and Indonesian voicemail or messages on Twitter.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're not even sure that he actually got these messages.
Right.
He disabled his account. It's possible someone made another account, claimed to be him back on Twitter, and then...
And there is a lot of fake accounts involved with this,
yeah,
too.
Tons of fake accounts. This is just such BS.
But apparently the Indonesian message he got, when run through Google Translate, which is always reliable, turned out to be this warning. And the post you just shared about the recording on your phone. Okay, come on. And then others translated the Morse code number sequences that read, they are taking over. So just convenient messages with dialogue that goes along with the voicemail, and probably just creeped. I'm sure this Thai dude, if he didn't have any involvement with the creation of this voicemail, was just like freaked the fuck out. Like just completely...
Yeah, I'm sure. I think he was, and that's why he deleted his account.
All the stuff he got. Yeah, it is probably why he deleted his account. And somehow, out of these messages, they arrived at cryptic lines about Stephen Hawking. And one user started tweeting that the message received was related to Stephen Hawking's death. You are not ready to face them. And then apparently the Morse code numerical sequences allude to like this April 18th, 2018.
Fuckery.
Which on April 18th, apparently a reckoning, rapture, or aliens are taking over that day, according to the messages.
Good God.
And then I think the only other thing that we forgot to mention was that this Thai guy said he had somebody at his house 3 a.m. taking pictures of him, which could be true, but then yet again,
someone took pictures of our house a few weeks ago.
That's what I'm saying. It could be, I mean, it could be a lot of different, but at 3 a.m., that is a little bizarre.
Yeah.
If that was true.
If it was true. Who knows?
So.
Who knows, y'all? Just go easy on it. Let's just wait at least till April 18th.
Again,
so dumb. I mean, people are terrified of it,
not
dude.
True, because we don't know. I don't know.
Obviously not. But it is so hoaxy.
My bullshit meter's going on. It's like,
dude, for real.
It's just like complete.
But since we talked about MH370 last week because of this voicemail, we were like, it would be a good week to do a whole podcast on the Malaysian 370 flight, which is very, very interesting. So you ready to get into that?
Yeah, and just to preface this podcast episode, there is a lot of information about this. I mean, there's thousands of pages of reports and stuff. So there's just so much to it that we aren't going to be able to cover all of it, but we're going to cover all the juicy stuff, all the stuff that's interesting, and some of the theories behind what happened to it and where it is and all these different things. But there is a lot of details to it. So we always like to say, if you want to know more about something, or you are questioning something we're saying, always do your own research. And, if you want to look into, there's so much.
And it's very conflicting information from multiple countries, reports, and it's just very confusing all around. There's a lot of stuff out there. So
there is.
Hopefully we can, because
there was a lot of hands in the pot, basically. A lot of hands in the pot for this investigation. There was a lot of people involved, manpower. There's just a lot of factors, a lot of different variables. So what the fuck happened to Malaysian flight MH370?
I have always wondered.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I kind of forgot about it till that voicemail. Yeah, I kind of forgot about it a little bit. Man.
Dude, I've been looking this up at least once every few months.
Fucking giant airplane missing.
Yeah. With
239 people.
Yeah. When it happened, you were really into it, I remember.
Yeah, when it happened, I was all over it. It's just, it's been a little while since it's been in like the news, so.
Oh, I know. They hushed it down real quick.
Yeah, this is really bizarre.
Yeah, it's extremely bizarre. So let's go over it for people who don't know the details of how everything went down. We just want to do a comprehensive overview.
Yes, comprehensive review of MH370.
All right, let's do it.
So, flight MH370 Malaysian Airlines, on the morning of March 8th, 2014, this Beijing-bound plane departed Kuala Lumpur around 12:20 a.m. with 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. What's interesting is it was one of two daily flights operated by Malaysia Airlines from its hub at Kuala Lumpur International Airport to the Beijing Capital International Airport. So just want to make sure that it's clear. This is just a normal flight, happens on a daily basis. So nothing weird or special about it. And the planned flight duration for this flight is 5 hours and 34 minutes. And in order to complete the flight, it requires 82,000 pounds of jet fuel. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because when we start talking about where it could have gone and where it could have actually maybe crashed or landed, I think it's helpful to have this information that it only had so much fuel to get 5 hours and 34 minutes between Kuala Lumpur and Beijing. So it can't fly like from Malaysia to Africa without refueling. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
But they carried 100.
But they actually carry some reserve fuel, a total of 108,200 pounds. So they do have extra, which gives them sort of a safety net of 7 hours and 31 minutes.
Oh.
And to put this in perspective, though, it's really not that much fuel. It's only enough to divert to alternate airports in China. Because they're just thinking that there's slightly closer airports that they could land or farther ones they could go to in the event they couldn't land in Beijing.
Okay.
So the plane's planned route would have taken it north over the Gulf of Thailand and Vietnam with an arrival in Beijing around 6:30 a.m. That's the time the MH370 was supposed to land. So on board the plane, the majority of the passengers, 150 of them, were from China, 38 were from Malaysia, and only 3 were from the United States. One of the Americans that was on board was Philip Wood, a 50-year-old IBM executive.
Oh, I remember this guy.
Yeah. Another passenger was a martial arts expert, Ju Kun, who recently had joined the production of the Netflix series Marco Polo, which was filming in Malaysia at the time.
Interesting.
And then as far as the other passengers go, they were from an assortment of countries like Indonesia, Australia, France, New Zealand, Ukraine, Canada, Russia, Taiwan, Italy, the Netherlands, and Austria. But there were also two people from Iran, which it sucks that they get automatically labeled, kind of stereotyped as possible like terrorists, but it is something that was considered.
It has to be considered, yeah.
There were two Iranian guys. One was like 19, the other was 29. And they actually boarded the flight with stolen Austrian and Italian passports.
And that's the reason why they were, they're, of interest. They wouldn't have just had them of interest if they were Iranian. That would be straight racist. But because they had these passports missing or stolen passports, I mean, that's just, but I think that they figured out they were just trying to immigrate.
That's right. Yeah. They were just, they had bought the passports in Malaysia.
Oh.
And you can just buy passports, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that you can actually like board a flight with a stolen passport or copied version of it. Sorry. The pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, who was 53 at the time, and the co-pilot was Farik Abdul Hamid, 27, and they were both Malaysian. Shah had 18,000 hours of flying time. He actually joined the Malaysian Airlines in 1981, so he was considered a veteran pilot, and Hamid had 2,700 hours. So,
and he was extremely Shah. Is it Shah? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Saha or
Shah, yes.
Yeah, he was like really, really into being a pilot. I mean, it was like his life passion.
Yes.
He even had a flight simulator in his house.
Yes.
Which is really going above and beyond as a pilot. So
he put in a lot of extra hours on the simulator because that's part of the training is flight simulator. Lots of hours in the flight simulator.
Yeah. So do they have to have one then?
No, well, you have to fly the simulator, but he had
most
one.
People don't own one.
No. Like I could build a flight simulator in my house if I wanted to.
Really?
Yeah. Anybody can do it.
You should. That'd be fun.
But it's like legitimate training. Like you have to know how to like
use everything.
Use it. So it's pretty complex. So both these guys had been flying for some time, and one thing I wanted to mention about Shah is that 6 weeks before the aircraft's disappearance, Captain Zahari Shah used his home simulator to fly a route that was initially similar to the part of the route flown by MH370 up the Strait of Malacca with a left-hand turn and track into the southern Indian Ocean, which this was according to the Australian report that was released. And so when this disappeared, after this disappeared off of radar and everybody had no clue what happened to it.
Yeah.
The FBI, the US was involved, Malaysia was involved, and Australia were the big countries that were involved with figuring out what happened to it. I'm getting a little bit ahead here.
Yeah, I was like confused for a second. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead here, but he did fly a route similar on his flight simulator. So when we talk about the route, just remember that.
Okay. Did he one where he ditched it or just?
I don't think they were able to determine that from the simulator.
Okay. And then the last thing that they said on the plane, the last thing they heard them say was "Good night, Malaysia 370." So creepy. And then it just went out and eventually.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry, one other thing I wanted to mention about the co-pilot that you brought up to me. I'm just trying to paint a picture of the pilots real quick.
Yeah.
The co-pilot in 2011 actually let like teenage girls or like young girls into the actual cockpit with him.
Yeah. So people are like, was he like the most responsible pilot? Like,
right. So
they have been distracted.
So as of right now, the pilots are definitely questionable, but there's nothing that would make them seem like out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's a lot of people wonder about is they've heard about this mystery passenger. So official reports state that there were 239 souls on flight MH370, 12 crew members, and 227 passengers. But this guy named Milne, he's a military technology developer. He claims that the cargo manifest report from that day said that there was only 228 passengers on board. And the 228 is the number of seats sold as of 2 hours before the flight. And this does not include the 2 children who sit with their parents. So it's been claimed by this guy and some others that 4 people did not board the plane. So that would make the final number of seats used down to 224.
So who wasn't on the plane? Did people just get a bad feeling and didn't go?
Well, no, that's the thing is we don't know. So the official reports say that there's just some discrepancy between the manifest report. Like the reports can change basically. They're saying it's not 100%. It changes from time to time, the manifest report. Like depending on situations and stuff. So it changes. So it's possible that there may have been one person unaccounted for on the plane. It's possible, but we don't know for sure.
Okay.
But back to the story, the plane's in the air headed towards Beijing, and at around 1 a.m., the plane transmitted its final aircraft communications addressing and reporting system signal, which this allows the computers on board the plane to communicate with the control towers on the ground. And according to officials, the last communication MH370 had with the air traffic control, like you were saying, came around 1:20 a.m. when one of the pilots said, "Good night, Malaysia 370." And real quick, I just want to play a little bit of the last really transmission from this plane.
Is that
before
right?
It goes.
Transmission?
Yeah, a transmission. So
okay.
Climb flight level 180, cancel aside turn right direct to Ikari. Okay, level 180 direct Ikari, Malaysian 370. 370, contact lampu radar 1326 kenai. Alright, 1326 Malaysian 370. Lampu control Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, lampu radar, good morning, climb flight level 250. Morning, level 250, Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, climb flight level 350. Climb level 350, Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
So that is the last transmission, and what's happening during that is they're basically telling Malaysia, we're leaving your airspace and we're going to be entering, we're supposed to be entering Vietnam's airspace. What's wrong?
No, it's just...
But so it's the transition between one airspace to another. So that's typical. There's nothing out of the ordinary during that transmission. Is the point of showing it's completely normal. There's no panicking. There's nothing seemingly
nothing
wrong.
To say. Yeah.
Right.
Other than when he was signing off, he was like, "Good night, Malaysian 370." He said like for a second.
Yeah, and some people say that like if you listen to that back again, you would hear maybe a slightly more American sounding voice.
Can we play it again?
At the end of the transmission.
Yeah, let's play that last part again.
You want to play it again?
Like an earlier one and then the last part.
Like an earlier one of what?
Like when he was talking to get his voice before.
Okay.
Right?
Malaysian 370, climb flight level 350.
That's the tower.
Climb level 350, Malaysian 370.
Okay, that's his...
Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350.
This is the plane.
Malaysian 370.
Tower. Plane.
370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian
Tower.
370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.
And here's the last one coming.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
It does sound a little different.
It does sound a little different at the end, actually.
That's interesting.
And that's the last we heard from them. Like, that's it. That's the last we heard from that plane.
Wow.
And something,
a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. So shortly after that last broadcast, the officials at the Civil Aviation Administration of Vietnam said that the plane failed to check in as scheduled with the air traffic controllers in Ho Chi Minh City, and all those computers on board the plane that could track its position had been deactivated. So this is pretty much when the plane completely disappears. It goes off a radar. It's no communications made with it. And actually, I didn't know this, but a captain of another airplane attempted to reach the crew of Flight 370 after using the international distress frequency to relay Vietnamese air traffic control requests for the crew to contact them. And the captain said he was able to establish contact, but only heard mumbling and static. And they actually made calls at 2:39 a.m. and 7:13 a.m., but they were unanswered but acknowledged by the aircraft satellite data unit. So that may have been. So
the call was coming through.
It was being.
But it was acknowledged as answered, or just.
That I mean, I don't know what acknowledgement.
So it was ringing or whatever
for the satellite.
Call was complete. Okay.
Yeah. So that basically the communication went through, and it was actually accepted by MH370, but there was no response or anything like that. So it's completely quiet. And at 2:25 a.m., the aircraft satellite communications sent a log-on request message. And this is the first message on the system since the system's transmission at 1:07 a.m., which relayed by satellite to a ground station. And both of these operated by Satellite Telecommunications Company in Merced. And by logging onto the network, the satellite data unit aboard the aircraft responded to hourly status requests from the satellite and the two ground to aircraft phone calls at 2:39 and 7:13, which went unanswered by the cockpit. So those, I guess those were direct calls to the cockpit from another aircraft. I didn't even know they could do that, but they have the ability via satellite to call. I guess it's probably a good thing they can call each other.
Yeah.
And the final status request and aircraft acknowledgement occurred at 8:10 a.m., about 1 hour and 40 minutes after it was scheduled to arrive in Beijing. So I'm detailing different things that basically the onboard computer system logged and was actually transmitted back to the ground. The aircraft sent a log-on request at 8:19 a.m., which was followed after response from the ground station by a log-on acknowledgement message at 8:19. So the plane is still up. It's still going. It's still doing its thing. It's just turned off all of its communications equipment and basically disappeared from radar.
But they believe it was just flying.
Yeah, it was just flying still. It was still in the air, still. I mean, the onboard computers were still going. So, and the last status request from in Merced was at 9:15 a.m. and the aircraft did not respond. And one of the most wild things about it is the flight path completely changed.
Yeah, it did.
And based on military radar that we have, it is believed the plane changed course immediately after the communication systems were deactivated. That's like a very timed move too.
Dude,
like,
totally.
All right, we're going to turn communications off and we're going to turn this thing around.
Dude, yeah. I really think something
happened.
Did this.
Something happened. Yeah. Because it banked west
and then change directions. Wow.
So communication's dead. And then as soon as they did that, the flight path completely changes. Like, that's just so like the fact that they were like one after the other is just so obvious that somebody did something.
Yeah, that really does make a lot of sense.
And so the plane actually banked west from its northern path and headed back toward Malaysia and out over the Indian Ocean. So it was going north, guys, and it literally flipped around and went south, like almost directly south.
Yep.
So clearly somebody did it, was like, we're going to U-turn this thing and go the other way.
Do you think you would feel that as a passenger, like the turning?
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about that. Like, what were the passengers... What that must have been like. I'm sure they could feel that because I'm sure it was like a fast turnaround, like as fast as they could do it probably.
Yeah, probably.
And I mean, you feel like a plane because like to do a U-turn though, they'd have to kind of flip the plane like kind of on its side.
Oh, yeah, you would feel
so you would feel that for sure. You'd be like, whoa.
So then there's a lot of people out there that question like, why weren't there any calls made? Like if people knew something was going on, why did no one like? Up. Yeah, well that's the thing is like. In the 9/11 theories, when we talk about how people did make calls, you know, but I guess this is way higher than they were like being close to New York.
Well, yeah, they're like going over the ocean. So anytime they're flying over the ocean, they're way up there.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, it's possible,
it makes sense. But people just always online
because you have to be to make like a call with a cell phone on a plane. You got to be fairly close to the ground. Like even if you're like somewhat, it doesn't work. It's not going to connect.
Especially in 2001. That's why I was like, for 9/11, it's just so weird that even like worked.
Yeah, but I think the wireless technology was probably different. It was probably like maybe even like phones, like I don't know, like satellite phones even.
No, they were cell phones, but yeah.
So the plane just never shows up, and everybody's like, "What the hell? Where's the plane? It was supposed to land." And so Malaysian Airlines had to issue a media statement at 7:24 a.m. 1 hour after the scheduled arrival time of the flight at Beijing's, and they had to say that the contact with the flight had been lost at 2:40 a.m. and that the government had initiated search and rescue operations. So one thing to note is that it seemed like Malaysian Airlines and just Malaysia in general just were like, oh, it was a crash. It's just a kind of a freak accident type of thing, you know, when a plane just crashes because of a mechanical failure or something.
Yeah, they were so sketch about it, Malaysia. I remember like watching the footage of people waiting in this hotel for like answers about their family for like days. And crazy. They were so like terrible. The officials were terrible to them.
Little to no communication or updates on the search or anything.
And they have been sketchy about this from day one.
Absolutely. And as a part of their statement, they actually told people that the crew nor the aircraft's communication systems relayed a distress signal or any indications of bad weather or technical problems before the aircraft vanished from radar screens. So I think really they're trying to push, you know, but it's like if there was a mechanical failure or something, why was there no distress signal? Or there was like literally nothing. It just went quiet, like completely silent. And on March 24th, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak appeared before the media at 2200 local time to give a statement regarding Flight 370. And at this time, he announced that he had been briefed by the Air Accidents Investigation Branch that it and the satellite data provider Inmarsat had concluded that the airliner's last position before it disappeared was in the southern Indian Ocean. So they confirmed that it had completely turned around and went the other way.
So that's like has to be deliberate. And I've heard so many theories, but that whole part of it just throws, if it just stopped like communicating all of a sudden right there, it'd be different.
Right.
But the fact that they can tell that it was actively making a new route while the communication systems
I don't understand how they're
off,
just saying this is like a normal accident.
It's not. That's why there's so much sketchiness around this, because of how weird this is. People can just use their common sense and say, something's fishy here. This is so weird. How do you lose this huge plane? Like if you don't know how big a Boeing 777, it is so big, the biggest
plane they make.
Yes, and for that to just disappear
doesn't happen.
And
this is a highly technologically advanced piece of equipment too. This is not just like anything. This is like way more advanced than your house, like anything that you can think of. This has like extremely smart computers on board and tons of really expensive equipment. These planes are millions and millions of dollars. So this is not just like there's no way it's just some random thing. Like this kind of stuff just doesn't happen. That's why you don't hear about
other plane crashes. Like even if they're found later, they're always found eventually. That's kind of what people are saying. There's always a reason for it. Eventually this will be found. Like when there's news coverage, there's a lot of experts that are like, this will be found in the next couple months. It'll be found like really soon. And
they
then
start
it never
comparing
was.
it to other plane crashes, and they're like, "Oh, we found that. Just it took us some time, but we found it. This will be the same kind of way."
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I've interrupted you.
It's okay. But basically, the Malaysian airlines and government were just like, "There's no places where it could land, so the aircraft must have just crashed in the ocean." That's like literally their conclusion was like straight off the bat.
Yeah, and there are places it could land for sure. Like there's tons of little islands. But this was so mysterious at the time that even people on CNN were talking about aliens, dude. I remember like watching this. They had some expert dude who was on there and he mentioned aliens and they had like a conversation about, is that possible? Like a legitimate one. And they were kind of joking, but it was just like, God, I mean, even they were like, dude, maybe.
Because everybody's like, what the fuck? How does a giant airplane just disappear in thin air?
Disappeared, yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And according to U.S. investigators' investigation, they suspected that the plane probably remained in the air for up to 4 hours before crashing into the ocean. So they think that it went on flying for hours and hours and hours, and people probably were maybe slightly confused, but they probably didn't know. I mean, unless it was a straight up hijacking.
Right.
And they saw what was going on. So, of course, everybody's like, well, what are you guys going to do about it? And the Malaysian government and airlines were really bad about this too. But they sent out search teams to begin looking for the plane in the Indian Ocean about 1,600 miles off the coast of Perth, Australia. And pings thought to be from the plane's black box recorders were being picked up in the area, supposedly. And a fleet of ships and aircraft were dispatched. And one thing to note about black boxes, because this is like kind of the last memories of the plane are kept in this black box, is I guess a good way to put it.
It records the final audio from inside the cockpit.
But I read that when a plane crashes on impact, the black boxes automatically eject and they actually float.
Oh yeah, they're like indestructible. They could be set on fire. Like anything could happen. That's why it's so weird that they never found the fucking box.
Right, if it crashed.
Unless it's on the bottom of the ocean somewhere. And for some reason doesn't work at that amount of pressure. Maybe. I mean, there are some really deep points of the ocean, dude.
Oh yeah, miles. But that's if it sinks, but it's supposed to float.
Yeah.
But when they were searching satellites, they were using satellites to locate debris, and they found some trash and oil slicks that were seen in the water, but they weren't able to recover any debris or anything related to MH370. And after about 10 days searching the area, radar estimates were recalibrated and the search was moved about 700 miles northeast. And this search area is huge. It is so enormous. I mean, I don't even understand how they could begin to tackle the Indian Ocean is huge, and it's such a large space to search for a, relatively small object like a plane in the ocean.
Yeah, compared to the ocean, it's small, tiny.
So they've continued searching and going various different places. They searched a huge search radius and they never found anything. And in January 2015, the plane's disappearance was ruled an accident. And at this juncture, and this is a quote from the Malaysian Director General of the Civil Aviation Department, and he said, "At this juncture, there is no evidence to substantiate any speculations as to the cause." So basically, that's a giant, we don't know what the hell happened. We have zero idea.
Yeah.
Because we didn't find shit in our search. They literally did not find much in their search in the area that they thought the plane actually went down, which, like I said, was off the coast of Australia.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that's really weird about it is, I mean, maybe it would be hard to find the plane if it was just like all together, but like if it crashed into the ocean, it's going to be in at least like millions of pieces, like 2 million pieces. If it's
coming down hard from a high altitude.
Yeah, because it's like hitting concrete because it picks up, obviously.
No, I know. Yeah, exactly. Like, when you talk about the force of that.
Yeah. So there would be pieces everywhere. And then there's the fact that, they always tell you on the plane, your seat cushion floats if you have an emergency. So the seat cushions float.
There should be a lot.
The fact that nothing, not even a napkin or a bag of pretzels ever ended up on the shore is crazy.
Or in the area they searched, which was huge.
Yeah. But I mean, eventually things would end up on the shore, because that's what a lot of experts said too back then. I remember when I was watching it, like, we may not find anything right now, but eventually something will come up on the shore. But now that it's 2018 and nothing's come up, not a single thing.
Well, they did find debris off the shore, but not in the original search area.
Right.
Yeah.
But are they even completely sure it's from?
Yeah, they are. Officials have confirmed that it's true.
That seems super weird. Only two pieces of airplane wreckage have been confirmed coming from MH370.
But before we talk about that, I just wanted to say that the search went on for a long time. In Australia, China, and Malaysia were the big components to it, and they did underwater searches. I mean, they thoroughly searched this area that they thought the plane could be in, because it was a joint effort, and they spent $160 million.
Yeah.
In order to search this area. So they spent a lot of money and years of time to get... A lot of
taxpayer dollars. All I'm going to say is that's a lot of pressure on them to find something.
Yes.
I'm really not convinced that that's from that, because there was barely any coverage of that. If they confirmed that MH370 has been found, wouldn't that be just huge and everywhere?
You would think.
You would definitely think, dude. That's a huge topic. So I just think that's kind of like a very hush-hush way about looking at it.
The whole thing's been hush-hush, though. I mean, the whole thing, the way it's been reported has been hush-hush, and probably, I don't know. I don't know what the reason is for that. But they stopped searching in January of 2017, and they finished searching a 46,000 mile zone in remote waters off West Australia. So they really thought that if they were going to find the plane, it was going to be off the west coast of Australia, but they found nothing, jack shit.
Right. I just think that's a lot of pressure on them to be like, we spent $160 million of taxpayer dollars. For it. Yep. That would look pretty bad.
I don't know if it was completely taxpayer dollars, but it was a lot of taxpayer dollars and a lot. And what's interesting, I think, is that China paid the least, I think, for the search. And they had the most people. They had like 180 people that died or went missing on that plane.
Yeah.
And they weren't that. They just kind of, the reports were that they thought that the search was futile, and there was just no reason to continue it. So they didn't want to pay for it. They're just like, whatever, move on.
Interesting.
But like you just said, their officials have reported, and you can Google this, multiple news media outlets. I mean, this was on CNN, but they did, over 2015 and 2016, they did find 2 pieces of airplane wreckage that have been confirmed as coming from MH370. And one was a flaperon, which is part of the wing, which was discovered on Reunion Island in July 2015, and an outboard wing flap found in Tanzania in June 2016.
So they pretty much, at this point, they definitely think it went down.
I mean, if we're finding pieces of the wing, one has to think that without these I mean, it's not like this plane can land.
Yeah.
I mean, it could, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I didn't know all this. Since July 2015, about 6 pieces of wreckage have been confirmed as likely coming from the missing plane. That's crazy, because I just feel like there was barely any coverage of that. I mean, I feel like I would have known.
I was shocked too. I did the same thing when I read that. I was like, really? How can we
Yeah, because I think that was like right after I did my video. I don't know.
And the pieces were actually, so like Reunion Island and this other place called Mauritius are off the eastern coast of Africa, near Madagascar, is where these debris were found. The plane wing fragment that was found in Mauritius was delivered to the Australian investigation team that was working on this, and they were able to see a legible OL part identifier on the plane piece, which allowed the investigators to definitively identify the wreckage.
Wow.
So they were able to trace it back to, I think they were able to go to Boeing and be like, where did this piece, can you trace this number? And they were able to trace that this piece went to that plane somehow. Yeah, and in total, since 2015, about 6 pieces of wreckage were found, but some of them they have no idea if it's for sure from MH370, which includes 2 items of debris that were found in Mozambique coast in December 2015 and February 2016. But they're fairly certain that they're from MH370, and a 7th piece of debris found in Madagascar covered in burn marks may also come from the missing plane, but is yet to be verified. So I think there's some pieces of debris there's no way they're going to ever be able to verify. Yeah, if you look at the map, it's the southeastern coast of Africa is where this debris washed up on shore. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They turned around and then went down somewhere here.
They were going out in the middle, literally out into the middle of the Indian Ocean, it seems like.
Debris is found, possible debris found, debris. Interesting. Okay, so the plane, it seems like the plane definitely did go down. The question is how
and why and where exactly. So we're looking at pictures of the actual plane. I'll link it in the description for you guys, so you can actually go look at these pictures. But they have actual pictures of the debris they recovered, and it looks legit to me. I mean, some people are like, oh, that could be fake. It could be fake debris.
It could be,
and it's possible it is. But I mean, clearly there's the part identifier number, and unless everybody's in this conspiracy to make this thing disappear.
Multiple countries definitely makes it less likely to be a conspiracy, I feel like.
Yeah. And another reason we wanted to talk about this too is because literally on March 19th, so a few days ago.
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah. A man by the name Peter McMahon a 64-year-old Australian mechanical engineer who's also spent 25 years working on crash investigations, claimed that Google Earth images showed the missing plane in the water 10 miles south of the island of Mauritius, which I was talking about, which is an island nation in the Indian Ocean. And there's literally, you can go look this up. I'll link it as well, but it does look somewhat like a plane.
Yeah.
The Google Earth image.
It definitely does.
It really does, actually. You can see the wings and the tail. You can't really see the cabin, though.
But how do we know it's real, that picture?
That's the thing, is the engineer claims that the earlier searches for the aircraft did not explore this territory. Some fragments of the plane's front section were found not far from Rodriguez Island. So why would it be
floating, though?
Yeah, that's very weird.
I feel like you couldn't see it from the ocean, from the water.
Well, it depends, though. And again, it comes back to, did it drop out of the sky because it ran out of gas, or did it and just completely fell and crashed, or did it actually glide? Because even if a plane's engines go out and it runs out of gas, it can glide for a long time. And if you weren't trying to, what I'm saying is, if you're not trying to commit murder-suicide here, and you're trying to save everybody on board or try to land it or whatever, you would glide the plane. So you would, even if it completely shut off, you could glide that big old plane for a while.
Wow. Okay.
So it's possible it flew
and then he saved
out into
people
the
and
ocean.
Then they dropped. Huh. I don't know though.
It's possible.
Even the picture, I mean, is hard to say because that must be pretty shallow water for you to be able to see it from the surface. So this looks like it's the middle of the ocean. Wouldn't it be way deeper than that? I don't think you could see it that clearly to the point. It just kind of looks like convenient waves or even a whale. Like we don't even know what that could be.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And he sent this evidence that he found to the actual team, the Australian Transport Security Bureau, who has been heading up the investigation. And they did not rule out that his find could be fragments of the plane. This guy claims. And he also said that U.S. government representatives ordered the Australians to stick to their search region in the Indian Ocean. He claims this. He just claimed this. I don't know what this is based on, but it is interesting to think that for some reason we were trying to tell people to only search in a certain area, like Americans were, somehow indicating we might be involved. And according to this guy, 4 Americans were sent to Australia to search, to track, and they have made sure that all the information received has been hidden from the public. And this is what this engineer told the newspaper that wrote this story about him. And he also said that authorities do not want the plane found, as it's full of bullet holes. Finding it will only open another inquiry.
Yeah, because in the picture, I mean, but how can you tell if it's full of bullet holes from a Google image picture of something that's underneath the ocean? I mean, that seems like kind of... I mean, maybe if you have like some maybe he has access to a different version of Google Earth than we do. Wouldn't he post it then?
Yeah,
he'd take a screenshot.
Yeah, I feel like he would post pictures of the bullet holes.
What great version of it does he have access to that we don't?
So that was the story that broke, and a lot of people went and said, this is bullshit, because the Google Earth images this guy put forth were from November 6, 2009, which is 4 years before, 4 years earlier, before the plane disappeared. So these can't possibly. It could be bullshit. I mean, officials say it's bullshit, but he claims it isn't. But he could be just making this up. So this is where we get to really speculate about what happened, and we started doing that here just a second ago. But one of the biggest theories is that this was a murder-suicide by the pilot.
Right.
And that he purposely took control of the plane, shut off all the systems, because he would have the know-how to do that. He's the pilot. He probably knows more than the co-pilot even does, I would imagine. So he probably knows how to, it's even possible this guy was in on it. I don't know how that would be possible, but it is possible.
The other co-pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he's in the cockpit with you. So what do you do with him if you're planning to murder-suicide this thing?
Well, see, I just don't believe the murder-suicide thing personally. Like, I think if anything, it was taken over by someone and he was forced to do what he did.
Right. Because when we're talking about the pilot committing suicide as well, they investigated this and there was no indication.
Nothing.
Like, both these guys had good lives for the most part. normal lives.
Their
and
families were like, they just didn't do that.
It'd be totally out of character for them.
Yeah, and he was actually well known around the area. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
There was no warning signs. There was just no, because a lot of people that do end up committing suicide, there's red flags or signs. You're able to find things that may, I mean, not always, but you are usually.
So what about the fact that he had a flight simulator though? Because that's like one thing that a lot of people are like, that's super weird. But I think a lot of pilots end up building them.
Especially ones that love flying. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Practice, yeah.
So when we start talking about what else could happen, for me and you, I think we're on the same page. We both think it was hijacked somehow.
Yeah, I did. I definitely think it was hijacked.
And most experts actually think it was hijacked as well. The only question is whether or not it was the pilot or some third party or, some person, terrorists, hacking, whatever it may be. And of course, as part of the investigation, they searched into the backgrounds of all the passengers on board and found nothing alarming. So, except for that mystery passenger we talked about earlier, which we have zero idea if that's even real or who it is or what. We have no clue who that would have been.
Interesting.
But all the other passengers checked out. There was nothing that would suggest that they would want to hijack a plane.
Huh.
And so back to this guy we were talking about, had this really interesting theory about this mystery passenger. And he's the one who put forth the evidence that there really could have been somebody on that flight who was not supposed to be. And somehow they flew under the radar and got on and did a good job of, and did something and may have been responsible for what happened. So this is a theory that this guy put forth, and it's a little confusing, so bear with me, but he thinks that for some reason there was somebody on board that deliberately wanted to engage with this U.S. military base called Diego Garcia.
Right.
Which is an island.
Is a big theory when it comes to MH370.
Yes. And it's an island out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and there's a large, or I guess not large, but there's a military base there.
A U.S. military base.
Because one of his pieces of evidence for this theory I'm about to put forth is that there are eyewitness accounts from islanders in the Maldives who claim they saw a low-flying jet on the day the aircraft disappeared. 100% they said they saw.
And why would they lie?
Right, exactly.
A bunch of them said that, actually. That was one of the main reasons when, like, my theory when this first was happening, I remember thinking, like, I think someone hijacked this plane and then took it and landed it somewhere, and then took off again and took it somewhere, put it in a hangar, and had planned to use it as a weapon in the future. That was my theory back then. But, I mean,
it's possible. And I mean, I think you have to, when talking about what these islanders in the Maldives saw, it could have been, so what they're saying is that maybe because these people saw this low flying plane, maybe it was really MH370 flying south towards Diego Garcia Air Force Base, and that's why they would have saw it. But maybe they just saw a military plane. But according to the eyewitness reports, they were like, it was like really big, and it does sound a lot like.
Yeah, it was a big air. Yeah.
Yeah, so this guy puts forth that there's no doubt in it. So this guy basically thinks that the plane ended up in the Bay of Bengal, which is up near India. And he thinks that a soft ditch landing was performed, and that it then slowly sank while drift gliding to an unknown site, whereby using the most basic standards of probability still likely fully intact. So he thinks somehow the Russians are involved with this possibly, and that they ended up in the Bay of Bengal. Because they were this aircraft may have been, I don't know, taken over by Russians or hacked and was then being used to
That's interesting.
Crash into this military base, possibly, I guess is the theory.
To crash into it?
Yeah.
To like use it as a weapon?
Right.
But then we would have had reports about the crash and the attack at
and that's the thing is,
they think he thinks it was a failed attempt to do this.
Right. Why
wouldn't the Russians just use their own, if they were really going to like strike war with us?
Well, it's
and like a random
way.
base on Diego Garcia, that's not that important to us.
No, I mean, I don't think so.
Not saying that people aren't there aren't important or anything, but it's not like a huge base that would like take down the United States. Seems like kind of a bit of a
stretch to think that why for what gain? Like what game would they have?
But the theory of the plane being hacked is very interesting. Josh, you should try to speculate on that a little bit since you understand hacking way more than me.
Yeah. So,
because that's totally possible. In fact, like George Bush admitted that they were currently working on or already had the technology to control airplanes from the ground.
Well, this is the thing about it is like there's a lot of people that think that the way that the technology for airplanes is being developed and the software that's being developed ever since 9/11, it's been a huge fear that planes would be used as weapons, like you said, and that they have actually created the technology for planes to be overridden and remotely controlled by the tower or whoever it is, the airline or whatever, in the event of an emergency. So anytime you have any sort of remote control access to anything, there is always that basically opens a door for hackers to try to exploit it and try to take control over that control.
So scary,
and they can do that. And they do that with computers, phones,
like
literally everything. So these airplanes are extremely advanced computers, and it's possible that the autopilot onboard computer could have been hacked and then reprogrammed and flown to a secret location. So maybe this was the doing of maybe Russians or some sort of hacking group or terrorist group even, and they hacked this plane. And if you're able to take over the autopilot computer, then you can then punch in new coordinates and then fly to those coordinates without any control from a human. It's crazy. And that's something that is really interesting to think about, that whenever you get on a plane, the actual pilots in the cockpit don't do that much. They're only really there for like takeoff and landing.
Yeah,
but once it's up there,
my cousin's a pilot. He told me that he's like, you really don't do that much.
Yeah, but once you're up there, it's a computer that's
really
flying
taking
it.
off and landing that they do.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
So it's very possible that it was hijacked and that maybe it was flying to some secret location, like you said, and some group was then gonna use it for whatever they were going to use it for.
Yeah.
And that's the other theory when it comes to hijackers, is that they landed the plane and then hit it somewhere remote.
I really think that's super possible.
Because the biggest proponent for this theory is the fact that if the 777 did crash, there would be loads of debris. And the fact that we've only gotten a couple scraps from it is like, what the hell happened? So people think that maybe the plane was diverted to a small remote airstrip. Maybe Diego. I mean, maybe that military base. I mean, maybe there's some sort of U.S. government cover up here. I mean, it's possible. But why? And, you know. But there are other options as far as landing places.
It doesn't really, like, for me, it doesn't really make much sense that the U.S. would be, like, involved, because what would they be getting out of this? I can see a hacker or, like,
right. It doesn't seem worthwhile.
Terrorist. Yeah, I mean, they can make their own planes.
Yeah.
Like, why would they be doing this?
And people that have really tried to blow that,
there wasn't anyone important on it either that you'd be trying to kill. Like,
well, that's the thing. And if you think about it, this plane had a majority, as far as the people go, it was Chinese, like a huge. So if it was us, that would be like war on China.
Yeah.
If we had something to do with that. So
it's too risky. That is so, I just feel like that's bullshit. Although I really do think that hackers may have taken it. Although if they really found these parts, that proves that they didn't. Yeah. So that was my idea before that. But now that that's come out, I mean, yeah, it sounds like I think it was hijacked, and either this person was crazy. Maybe someone was just crazy. Like, it's never happened before in history. But what if someone hijacked the plane? They're not for any terrorist group. They're just like some wingnut.
Or a flight attendant.
Yeah.
What if this was like the first time a flight attendant's hijacked a plane?
Yeah, or just like I just feel like a regular passenger could have just been like, this is my weird fantasy to like hijack a plane and crash it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what they did.
It's possible. Like, it could have been a total freak thing for all we know. Maybe it wasn't planned at all.
Some like bizarro person that did this.
It's possible. Or this mystery passenger that we have no clue whether or not it actually existed, or if it did, who the hell that person was.
And the main argument for it not being terrorism is that, well, no one claimed it. Because like when ISIS does anything, or, you know, the Taliban does anything, they're like stepping up first place to claim that. They like want to claim it. They're not going to like pretend they didn't do it. And try
well,
to get
yeah.
away with it.
Why else would you do it to just deny it? I mean, you work so hard on it and you want to be taken seriously. You'd want to take credit for it.
But with that theory, if they were really taking a plane or wanted to use a plane, maybe they wouldn't tell people, you know, like if they didn't kill anyone, they just like took the plane and I guess what would you do with the extra people? But
just
again, because they found the wreckage, I mean, it just doesn't seem like...
Doesn't seem worth it.
No.
All that effort.
It seems, to me, honestly, it seems like someone hijacked it, either fucked up, screwed it up, and crashed in the water, or maybe a passenger, like, tried to... Or the people, like, overtook the plane, like United 93.
Yeah.
And crashed it, because they would rather that than,
I just don't know if it crashed, though.
Yeah.
The debris thing is just totally bizarre.
That's the hard thing to
the fact that we haven't found again though, it is possible that
it was gliding.
I mean, the search area, we'll never be able to search this area effectively. I mean, maybe with satellite technology we will be able to, but on its own, there's no way.
And you know that little flap, the thing, it was like filled with cardboard. You can see cardboard in the middle of the wing. Did you see that?
Yeah, I don't think that's cardboard, but...
Well, it didn't look very strong. Whatever it is, if it hit the ground that hard, would be in a billion pieces.
Yeah,
that seems like a very large piece for them to have just found if the thing fell out of the sky and hit the... It is literally
now
concrete.
That you say that, I'm like... It's very possible that all the debris that's been confirmed is maybe just like...
They're like pretty sure.
Or because they have found, like, other planes have gone down in that area, so... They have found debris from other planes. So it could just be other planes' debris, or maybe maybe this is a giant cover up and it's just fake debris to get us to think that it crashed, and maybe it didn't crash.
Or whatever group that is responsible, whatever country put this fake debris out there to be found.
We don't know where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be saying that if there weren't like all these other hugely confusing elements to this. Like I wouldn't just jump to the conclusion that it's fake debris and stuff unless there's some really interesting things here that just don't make sense. Especially the debris that doesn't make any sense. The fact that no one's found, like, I just feel like those big pieces would not have survived that. Like there are examples of other planes coming down from that high up, dude. Like, isn't it something with, it's like, we're going to sound dumb again.
Altitude.
People made fun of us for like sucking at biology last time.
Oh yeah.
No, but when you drop something, it picks up like a second for every 10
velocity.
Yes. Yeah. So it's going to go a lot quicker, and it's going to slam into it like literally like concrete, break up into a million pieces all over, and there should be stuff everywhere. And there's so many things that are buoyant. Like if you found a piece of the wing, but you didn't find any seat cushions, because that doesn't make sense unless the whole plane, unless it like hit at a speed where it was slow enough that the wings broke off, went wherever, and then the main compartment, what is that called? The fuselage?
The cabin.
I think it's called the fuselage.
There is a fuselage, yeah.
Like sunk down with everything in it, contained in it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Wings snap off, the whole tubular
big pieces
part
of debris, and it's all sunk
with everything inside and the people.
It's possible. It is possible.
Yeah. Especially because there's areas that are so deep, like miles and miles and miles.
Especially out in the middle. And I think my theory is that I don't know if it crashed. I almost think that maybe it glided for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe it was trying to get to somewhere, and it either made it or it didn't make it, and then it, because that's the thing is, like, that's hard to do. Any pilot, unless they were trying to intentionally crash the plane, they would glide it.
I feel like
they would glide the plane.
But like I think with the Hudson River and Captain Phillips, who landed the plane on the Hudson River, that was calm enough that he could do that. That's very, very hard to do on open ocean.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, these are huge waves, dude. I just don't see that being... The only reason that worked was because he was on a river. It wouldn't have worked in the ocean at all.
Yeah, it still would have been a really rough impact.
So...
But there's tons
I have
of
more
wild
questions than answers, that's for sure.
There's tons of wild theories out there about this. Some claim that the plane was shot down accidentally during military operations. One book about this missing flight has said that maybe it was accidentally shot by a U.S. Thai strike fighters as a part of their training drill. and it just went wrong.
But why?
That never happens, first of all. Why would that happen?
Second of all, if that did happen, we would have information that happened. There would be someone saying, Mayday, Mayday, the plane's been shot, we're going down. Like,
there was nothing.
The communications were shut off.
Right.
The fact that it was shut off is so clear that this was deliberate, that someone purposely did this, knowingly did this.
Somebody knew what was going on.
It was a plan. Because unplug that communication stuff, you have to like go in a separate, it's not like something you just easily like flick off like a little
that's why
switch.
People say
like
it wasn't
down
hijackers
the plane.
Because it is so you have like literally have to be a pilot in order to know how to shut down a Boeing 777.
They could force you to do it like by gunpoint.
That's true. A hijacker could force that for sure.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, because it could have been a hijacking group that wanted the plane and they were planning to fly it somewhere. Or maybe even like they put in that weird flight path on purpose. The pilot did.
Yeah.
But just in order, because what if this, here's an idea. What if this was a hijacking and the terrorists or whatever the group is wanted to use it kind of like a 9/11 type thing, crash it into Beijing or something. Yeah.
Yeah. What about it?
But I'm saying so they went to the pilots and they're like, hey, we want you to do this.
Yeah, and then he decided to crash it.
Yeah, and instead he either decided to crash it or he put in that flight path because he knew it, he remembered it from a simulator because the coordinates would be the same as the simulator. So he was like, I'll just pretend I'm going there, right? But I'll have it go to the middle of the ocean and go down. Instead of crashing it, I'll just punch in these coordinates on the autopilot computer and like shut down everything and lock it so that they can't take the plane where they want it to go. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That makes complete sense. And instead, they just flew it the opposite. They're like, but still, we'll just fly the opposite way and crash. In that theory, there's a hijacker as well. So we pretty much agree that there's a hijacker. But then why didn't we find it? Where did it crash? Oh, the mystery so many questions. Continues, dude. So what happened? Annoying. Oh, my God. I just have so many questions. I feel so bad for all these families too. Like I just cannot imagine not knowing what happened to my loved one. So many people have to deal with that. It just sucks. And the problem with this has been the cooperation between countries has been really bad, and Malaysia has been very weird about it. And it almost seems like Malaysia's trying to, at all costs, like not make their pilots look bad. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they're trying to like protect them and hold back information. Man, just for one dude. I mean, he could let one dude go down. Doesn't mean all your pilots that are Malaysians just suck because of this guy. I mean, I don't know. That seems like a stretch too. One theory that I don't think we have written down, but one theory I heard some expert talking about on CNN back a few years ago was that there could have been a fire on the plane. And the cockpit could have, the whole plane could have just filled with smoke and people could have passed out. Or some type of chemical, or they dropped a certain speed and you can like pass out from, or they flew too high. But why would the flight path change? I don't know. Well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And if the simulator thing is, again, I think the theory I put forward is pretty close to what happened, because it is if indeed there was this flight path on his simulator, it shows you that the Captain Shaw had that in his head. And he punched that into the computer for whatever reason. We don't know if it was because he wanted to kill himself or he wanted to protect from something worse happening. I mean, for all we know, there could have been a bomb on board. And it's not like a terrorist organization would have claimed it if it didn't work. If it was a failed thing, they wouldn't have claimed it. That's the thing. Maybe when the group never saw the plane crash in Beijing or wherever it was supposed to go, they just like said nothing and they were just like, that was it. But it is weird that it has been kept eerily quiet and just like very, they haven't told the victims much of anything, including the victims' families. They still are very confused and want answers because nobody is giving any information out. And what I found interesting was that the former Malaysian Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, accused the CIA of knowing the whereabouts of flight MH370. Mm-hmm. He was like, the CIA knows where it's at. Yep. And another thing I read is that apparently Russia has satellites that are above this area, and they have the ability to see everything going. That's the thing is like our planet is
covered in satellites.
By satellites all the time.
How do we not see this?
How do we not be able to find something?
Yeah, no.
So
and satellites that are being used by people all over. It's not like one company's like monitoring everything.
Tons.
There's tons of random people all over the world that can get into it. So like trying to hide something like that would be super hard.
It would be extremely hard. And this former prime minister in a blog said that someone was hiding something because if the plane's GPS system failed, then Boeing or the U.S. government agency would know why. Which I feel I would love to know, like for sure, if that's true or not. If Boeing, maybe they have like because it's like really, you like this plane just has the ability to just disappear completely. You guys don't ever have just like something on it in case, like, yeah, if you think about it, like you would think they'd have some sort of system in place so that if the worst happened, like this scenario where the whole computer gets shut down and taken over, that they would still have some way
you'd think they would just have it so you can't turn it off.
Right.
So weird.
Yeah, something like that. But the fact that they don't. So as far as Diego Garcia goes, when we mentioned that earlier, the United States actually had to deny the claims that any plane like MH370 had landed at its military base, because this was actually very popular. And I remember seeing the headlines and some of the rumors going around that the plane was headed for this tiny island that sits 3,500 kilometers from Malaysia in the middle of the Indian Ocean. But the U.S. Embassy in Malaysia actually said there was no truth to the speculation, which of course we don't know for sure. But there was no indication that MH370 flew anywhere near the Maldives or Diego Garcia. There's just we don't have any proof that it did. And another theory that gained traction in the summer of 2014 was the suggestion that the airliner that crashed in a field in Ukraine was in fact the lost Malaysian flight MH370. But this was actually Malaysian flight MH17. And according to the theory, which has been proposed by a lot of different conspiracy sites, and you may have seen it out there, but according to this theory, MH370 was hijacked and forced to land safely in an undisclosed location. And some of the people that believe this theory say that the plane was taken to the U.S. military base Diego Garcia because they believed this to be within range of where MH370 disappeared. And that it then deliberately crashed near Donetsk, or I don't think I'm saying that right, the Donetsk, by U.S. agents months later in a false flag operation. So that's in Ukraine, designed to discredit Russia. That's pretty far out there to think that it's possible, I guess, but there's no indications that that's where the plane went. So they're saying that the U.S. used that as like a false flag attack on Russia in order to get back at them, pretty much.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And to support their argument, some of them have said that the fact that wreckage found in the Ukraine seems to have a different configuration of windows to the actual Malaysian flight MH17, and that a Malaysian flag on the side of the fuselage is not in the right place. But any pictures that they produce of that, many people think are fake. So again, whenever we talk about conspiracy theories, people will go to great lengths to create a narrative that they want to push. Yeah. And I mean,
I think people like to solve things or feel like they've solved something. So
I mean, yes, the US and the CIA could have organized some really elaborate attack involving this big giant plane, which makes no sense whatsoever. Because if the CIA wanted a Boeing 777, they just go buy a Boeing 777. Right. Why would they need to hijack a plane with Americans on it, for one? And, lots of Chinese people. Again, it just seems like the risk to do this, because if this ever got out, which again, it probably would if this was true eventually, China would launch war on us immediately. Yeah. And why would they want to do that?
No, they would not want to do that at all.
Why would they want to do that? But the last theory we'll talk about, or the last two theories real quick. Some people think that maybe there's an Asian Bermuda Triangle. Like there's just a place, the energy's weird. Maybe there's like an interdimensional portal if we're getting really trippy with it that this plane went through, and maybe it literally just disappeared into another dimension, which is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. There could be like a little black hole out there and they just flew into it and went into another dimension or some sort of portal.
Crazy.
Some people think that. Either
or
that
like aliens or something.
Or aliens just straight up took it for themselves. But why would they do that? Why would they want a stupid airplane? So those are the main theories around it. There's so many more because people are always trying to come up with explanations for this because it's truly aviation's greatest mystery. It really is.
It is. And it's something that I feel like people will wonder about until we get a final answer. Like this will just continue. And who knows, 100 years from now, they could just be talking about this like the Titanic.
Do you think we'll find the actual...
It's possible. I mean, we found the Titanic way after.
Right. Years after.
So...
Well, yeah, right. Because eventually we're going to have technology that we're going to be able to scan the whole ocean.
Yeah.
We'll be able to know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
They'll know. Hopefully.
If they don't already. And
unless it's in another dimension or aliens took it.
It could. What if maybe maybe Mandela effect here. Like they traversed the multiverse and a plane popped up in another parallel universe. It's possible. And maybe those just people, all those people are still alive and they just exist in a parallel universe.
That's wishful thinking.
It's possible. So what if you had to say, like, what do you think happened just in like a short?
I think it was a hijacking that was either stopped or a hijacking gone wrong. That's what I think.
It just seems like there was too much deliberate moves that were made during it. The whole flight plan thing, like, if it just disappeared, like flying into Beijing, that'd be one thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that it didn't do that and it completely pulled a U-turn and went the other way.
Yeah, it's just like so bizarre.
If the whole flight simulator thing is real and that was actually on there, which it sounds like it was, it just shows you that the pilot Shaw had that already pre-planned in his head. Maybe it was like his emergency route or something.
Yeah.
And it was weird because like that was deleted off the dude's hard drive, which is a little sketchy, but it's also like maybe he just deleted it because he needed more space on his hard drive. But it's I don't know. Maybe it was something malicious. Maybe it was I still think it's possible it was just a murder suicide, or maybe something went wrong with him, or he had a psychotic breakdown, or I mean, who knows?
Could be.
The possibilities are limitless. I mean, we just have no clue.
That's why there's so many theories and so many hands in the pot here, because there's just so much.
But we'd love to hear what you guys think. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment and let us know what you guys think happened to MH370 and if you think we will ever find it. I sure hope we do, not only to know like what happened, but for the victims' families, because obviously a lot of people, over 200 people lost their lives on this plane if it indeed crashed. Or even if they're out there missing somewhere, I'm sure it's not in a great place or condition. So, obviously we want to recognize those people that may have died and, the pain that these victims' families have felt about this. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's got to be awful to speculate, hear all these speculations about what happened and literally have no answers, no clue what happened to your loved ones. I can't even imagine what that would be like to not know, to have somebody disappear on an airplane. That's crazy.
Dude, I seriously, it's so creepy. I think that's why people are so freaked out by it, because most people have been on an airplane. Like, this could have happened to anybody.
Yeah, it could have happened to anybody. I know.
Really
I was
scary.
just thinking about, I'm like, yeah, we were just over there not that long ago. That could have it could literally happen to anybody. So I hope we find the answers to the mystery of this missing flight.
I do too.
For the
sake of these poor freaking people and their families. I remember there was one woman who I just followed so closely. She was really trying to go on social media. I think her husband was either Australian or American.
Yeah.
I think may have been Philip Wood.
Yeah, it might have been his family. Because I remember they had him on the news and they were talking to him and stuff.
Yeah, and she was really accusatory of people. This is sketchy. I believe he's still out there. I believe he's alive. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. God, my hair's all...
Yeah, because I guess it's very possible the plane landed somewhere. And maybe the people are still alive. I mean, that'd be crazy. Sometimes I'm like, God, what if it was the show Lost? They just ended up on maybe they did crash
Lost.
And they're on some island somewhere.
God, that's a good show. No,
that's
it could be, but
It would be hard.
It's pretty unlikely. I mean, they probably searched like all the islands in that area. I mean, they
no,
would
not out in the middle of the ocean.
I guess.
But you would think that they probably did review land masses in that area to see if there's anything on.
I'm sure they did.
Because it's always a possibility, but hopefully we'll know at some point. But that's where we'll end it today. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode number 11, The Mysterious Disappearance of Flight MH370. Thanks again for listening. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, leave a rating.
Yeah, we want to know what you guys think, because clearly at the end of the day, Josh and I have no idea. I mean, that's the thing about this mystery is it's just such a mystery, and there's so many like holes. Every theory has holes in it, and every possibility has holes in it. So like when you have that many issues, it's just like there's so many possibilities, and we want to know what you guys think. Tell us in the comments if you think MH370 was hijacked, if you think it actually really went down, if you think the pieces are real. Like, we want to know what you guys think about all of this and your best guess at what happened.
Absolutely.
But thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening, guys.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, guys. Stay woke.
And I've been quiet for so long.